Hello, and welcome back to Art Masters with me, Mrs. Portilla. Today we're going to be doing some enchanted dreamlike villages, just like Marc Chagall. He messed around with scale, making things bigger and smaller in proportion, and he made patterns and dreamlike qualities in his abstract art, where some is a little bit real and a lot of it is a lot of abstract. So today we're going to be doing some enchanted villages, just like Chagall, and we'll be using oil pastels. So once you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started. So to get started on our Marc Chagall little Russian village, we're going to each have a different colored square piece of paper and our oil pastels. Today we're going to be doing some dreamlike enchanted houses. So we're going to do a kind of a magical dreamlike abstract village using geometric shapes. So think triangles and squares. So since I have a blue paper, I might want to think about contrasting colors. So like this blue against the yellow, the blue is really standing out. So since I have a blue paper, I might not want to use blue, I might want to use something a little more contrasting or different. So maybe I'll use, orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put kind of a floating square on my paper. So remember in our past art projects, we usually don't like to put something right in the center. We put it a little off to the side. So I'm going to put mine off to this side and I'm going to draw a square. Now your hand's a little smaller than mine, so I might use my fist, but you should be able to use your hand, about the size of your hand. So to do a square, there's 4 sides, right? One straight side. If you have trouble doing straight, I'll leave some templates for you, but you could also just use a scratch paper like this. And you would just do the side, stop, move it over about the size of your hand. Do you see how I'm not going all the way down? I want to leave some space. Okay, and then I need 2 more sides. You could also freehand it if that's easier for you. Okay, so there's my floating square. So I did mention that I might have some templates for you guys that you could share, but you can also just use the side of the paper. So you might get a square template, put it off to the side, leaving space at the bottom and the side. Now if I used orange on this red, that's not going to show very well. Green or blue, I'm going to do this light blue. So I would hold down the template, go very close to the side. Let's everyone open our pastels, and we are going to draw a square, either doing a freehand square. You can use a scratch piece of paper to help you with the straight lines, or the template. And remember, this is magical and dreamlike, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Excellent. Now every house needs a roof. And a roof is basically a triangle shape. So we are going to draw a triangle. So I can pick a different color this time. What about a pink roof or a yellow roof? So I could do a freehand triangle. I could use a paper, or I could use the little template that I have. If I'm going to do kind of a freehand, maybe I'll put the dot where I want my triangles to start and end. And then I could use my paper to just connect the dots. Okay, so I'm pushing kind of hard, which is fine. That's going to give me a brighter color. So I use some dots and just a piece of paper to get that. This one, I'll show you how to use the template. If you wish, you would just put the template right where you want it. You could even overlap that line a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna do a hill, okay? So a hill is a curvy shape. So I'm gonna use, maybe I'm gonna use this light green. So since it's a curvy shape, we definitely wanna do freehand or no template. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a curvy line that's gonna appear to be behind the house. So what does that mean? That means maybe you wanna put a dot to help you. I'll have it stop here and come out here. So I would go like this, curvy line. And we'll add some more colors to this, so it's okay if you have to repeat the lines, okay? So I'm gonna go like this and make a nice curvy line that appears to be behind my house because I didn't cut through my house. If you did accidentally cut through your house, that's okay. We'll just color in the house later to make it look better, okay? So that's why we're gonna avoid colors like black. We're just gonna use these nice bright colors, and maybe we could use black at the end for details. So everyone's gonna add a little hill that appears to be behind the house. So now we're gonna add a couple more curvy hills. So I might just pick a different green. So I'm okay when these shapes, when my pastels are small, because I could always use the side of them later, okay? So again, I'm gonna do another hill, but now I have this big empty space here. So I'm just gonna do like something like this, another little swoop, and I'll do the same here, swoop, and then maybe I'll add 2 or more little hills. I could use the same 2 greens, stop at the house, and let's do something like that, okay? So same thing here. Maybe I'll do a little hill here and another one here, okay? So you see how I'm not cutting through my shapes. I'm just adding little kind of hump-like shapes, zoop, zoop. Great, so now it's time to get dreamlike. Now, you see how that house is floating? It would be hard to draw it like that, but what if we turned our paper over? That would be a lot easier. So watch what I mean. So I'm gonna take my papers, I'm gonna turn them sideways because I have a lot of space here. So I'm gonna turn my picture sideways, and then I'm gonna actually start with the hill. Ooh, I'm going backwards. So I'm gonna use my light green again. And let's remember our little wavy hill shape, but I'm gonna make it smaller because I like to have a little bit of space in between, right? And we could always add more if we need to. So I'm gonna just kind of cover this corner. I guess I could sort of be an M or a long stretched out S for a hill. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. Okay, so I'm gonna add one more little shape using my dark. Okay, so now you're gonna do those 2 little mountain shapes, or you could just do one in the corner, keeping it kind of small. Okay, so now we're gonna draw our house, a little floating house. So again, our paper should be turned sideways because that's gonna make it easier for me to draw. Drawing upside down is hard. So I might use the color I used for the roof for my house. So I want this house to appear behind the hill. So that means I start at the hill and I make a line up, 1, and I make a line up, 2, and then I go across, 3. This one, and again, you could use a little scratch paper if you need to help you. Okay, this one, since it's small, I am gonna do it a little bit freehand. So my roof is yellow, so I'm gonna do 1 line up, 1 line up. Do you see how I'm stopping at the hill? So it's gonna look like my house is behind the hill. And then I'm gonna be careful, doop, just like that. So let's everyone draw. This time we're only gonna draw 3 lines of our square because we're starting at the little hill line. Okay, now we're gonna do the triangle. Again, you can use the little template to help you, or we could just use the dots. So I'm gonna use the dot method. So I use my color, I'm gonna use the opposite color. I'm gonna put a dot, which is how high I want my triangle to be. And then I'm gonna put the dots where I want the triangle to end. So I have 3 dots. If I'm not happy with my dot, I can move it because the pastel, I haven't drawn the line yet, okay? So now you could use an edge to make the straight line, or you would just carefully connect those dots. Excellent. Okay, so now we're gonna turn our papers back out and we can do an optional line. I noticed that I didn't draw my square very well. I went down too far, so that's okay. I might just take my darker green and just kind of do a little swoop color there. And when I color that in, that's gonna look fine, okay? So for the most part, I'm okay with my design. I'm gonna color in and then I'll add patterns on top. But some, I might leave empty so I could just do some lines. So what do I mean by that? we could color in the house red, and then after that, we would add lines over our pastel, because our pastel is kind of like paint, okay? But we can leave some of these mountains blank and then make our choices. So watch what I mean. I'm gonna color in my house. I'm gonna use the light blue that I had. And this time, I may wanna use the side. Oh, because then I get a nice big color, okay? So you could practice on your newsprint. So we could use the side and the point. So I'm gonna, and then to get the edges a little better, I would just use the tip of my pastel. And then we would color the inside of our triangle. So let's go ahead and color our first house. I use the colors that I outlined it with because later we can add an extra outline. So let's use the side of the pastel or our point to color our first house. Okay, excellent. Now I'm gonna go ahead and color my second house, doing the same thing, using the point or the side. And you'll notice that I turn my paper around to make it easier to color. Okay, great job. Now we're going to color in some of our hill. So I say some because I don't think we need to color all of them yet. We might want to leave some areas blank. So I could use the same color I used, or I could use a different color. Okay, excellent job. So you'll notice that I left a couple of these mountains blank because I might want to change the color on that or add a pattern. We'll fill that in later, maybe with a different color. Okay, so pattern. What is a pattern? A pattern is a repeated shape. So it could be repeated straight lines, repeated shapes like circles or squares, repeated angles, or repeated curves, okay? So let's start with some repeated lines. So in the bottom of the house, I'm gonna think about straight lines, and then maybe I'll use more curvy shapes for the mountains. So I have blue here. I wanna use probably a darker color so that'll pop. So I'm gonna use this dark purpley blue. So again, we can use a scratch paper if we wanna do perfect lines. I would just set it on my page. Good, and I might even add some horizontal lines after that. So I'm gonna use the same color and I'm gonna just move my paper over. And maybe I wanna do the same thing for my other house, or I don't have to put any pattern inside. So for this house, I might just do some horizontal lines. Okay, great, so let's add some straight lines in our houses, either up and down and across, or just up and down. So we're adding some patterns in our houses, the bottom part of our houses. So now I'm gonna use some curvy lines in my hills. So this one, I might just leave the red background and make some curvy S shapes. And then this one, I might just follow the curve of my hill and do repeated lines. Maybe I'll use two colors like this. Maybe for this one, I'll use circles. So what do I mean by that? I could just do these kind of repeated dot circles, moving my paper around. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add some design to our hills. Let's think about more curving shapes, circles, curves, swirls. If you wanted to color this area in a different color, okay, so we should have some curvy shapes or dots in our hill. And now we can just kind of do some more optional things. Okay, you don't have to do everything that I'm doing. So maybe we want to add some design to our roof. So again, we're thinking more straight lines. So I might do triangles or diagonals. I could just take just any sort of straight edge. And I'm doing a diagonal line, or you could just do it freehand. And then I'm gonna go the opposite way. And then if you want to be a little more exciting, maybe we fill in every other shape. So it's gonna look kind of like a checkerboard. So let's go ahead and add some designs to our roofs if we would like. And maybe you want to fill in some checker colors on your house. So we could add some texture to the roof, some patterns. You could also fill in a couple other squares on your house. So now we might be being close to done, or we could fill in the sky. So this might be more for you second graders. This person left their sky open. This person did a pattern in their sky. I'm gonna show you. So the sky is fine empty, or we could kind of do this pattern. If I do this pattern, I'm gonna pick a lighter color that's not as contrasty. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of do an outline of my shapes, and I'm gonna keep repeating that outline. So watch what that means. You do not have to do this if this is too tricky for you. So I would give some space from my shape, and I would just kind of outline it. And then I would go around that outline. So repeated patterns. Then maybe here I would start on my curve, and then I would outline this shape. So 2 or 3 lines around each shape, so then the shapes can kind of run into each other and create new shapes. So again, this might be too tricky for you. That's okay. Maybe you just want to do 1 or 2 lines. I think it looks fine with just the sky being empty. You could even add in, if you see a triangle shape like that. And then now, I'm gonna repeat that shape. So this one, I'm gonna leave empty. This one, I'm doing that background design. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you some more options. This one I feel like could use some outlines of the house and stuff to make it pop. But instead of using black, because black just kind of pushes everything back, I'm just gonna use a darker color. This person used a bright purpley blue. This person did do black, but they just did it just barely around the edges, so it didn't get too dark, but they did a dark blue and a dark red around their roof. Okay, this one, I'm gonna outline in all this dark blue color. So I'm gonna carefully follow my edge, or you could use your straight edge again. Okay, so that's just using one dark blue. It's already looking like it's popping, and it still has that dreamlike quality. Different color. So this one, I might put the red on the blue. And then maybe for the orange, I'll do green. Okay, great job, my friends. So final touches and possible details if you want. Fixing any pastels, and then if you want to do a door or a window, that's just a square and a rectangle. So I'm going to use the same color I used here, and I'm just going to color in a rectangle shape, and then I might do a little window shape. And then I might outline it with my red. So you can do an optional door and window, or you could just leave it alone like I'm gonna do with that one. So last but not least, we would flip over our art. We'd glue on our Marc Chagall sticker, and of course we would put our name on the back. And then you guys are done with your magical dream-like Russian village using oil pastel. Great job. Great job today, my friends, doing our abstract dream-like enchanted Russian village just like Chagall. So if you have time to evaluate, we can point out the contrasting colors, the different patterns that we used, and maybe how some of the houses are teeny tiny in proportion and some are normal, large scale. So I hope you enjoyed your time doing our enchanted Russian villages by Marc Chagall, and we'll see you next time on Art Masters.